Hi, so I'm Rhys Jackson. I'm the head of data and insight at Rocket Mill. We're a digital marketing agency based in Brighton. And today I wanted to be talking about digital analytics as the secret ingredient to success. There I am, lovely picture. So when I was thinking about what we could talk about today, I kind of went through a lot of the different projects that I worked on before, and I've been very lucky of being able to work on analytics projects for the guy around the corner running the garage to big blue chip corporate giants. And as I was going through all of these successful projects that have been worked on and some of the less successful ones, I kind of realized that the bit that made them successful was because it was relevant to that particular company. It worked well for them, but it doesn't really make for a fascinating talk to come and tell you about what worked well for someone else if it's not going to really help you. So what I started to piece together was a process of some tips, tricks and techniques for achieving success through digital analytics and using data to make the right decisions as a business. So at Rocket Mill, we put data at the heart of everything. We use data and we use that to inform our strategic services, to inform our strategy for the work that we carry out across pay-per-click advertising, search engine optimization, content and conversion rate optimization. And there's some really compelling reasons for why we put data at the center of everything, which I'd like to spend a little bit of time to talk about. So before we get into that, I just wanted to make sure everyone has the similar understanding of what digital analytics is. So Avinash Kaushik is a Google Analytics evangelist. He's a very prominent analyst within digital analytics, and he defines it as the analysis of qualitative and quantitative data to drive the continual improvement for your customers. Now, that's really good, but how is he driving that improvement? I wanted to take it one step further, and I've kind of defined this down, distilled it down, that analytics can be used to inform decisions across the full spectrum of operational and strategic decision making. And this could be anything from developing new products, entering new territories, and all sorts of things that can be used. I'll pause just there to recommend, has anybody heard of Think with Google? Anybody working with that? Fantastic website. Google collate and publish all sorts of research, particularly relating to digital marketing, but with industry trends. They have a mailing list that you can sign up for, pop in your email address, you tell them what you're interested in, and they share some fantastic insights across the industry, across all sorts of verticals. They had some really good stuff about fashion the other week, really great stuff. But just a couple of weeks ago on Think with Google, they published some research from PwC, which was talking about data and data-driven organizations. And they discovered that highly data-driven organizations were 3 times more likely to report a significant improvement in their decision-making. Sounds great, we should all be doing it. They also reported that 62% of executives are still relying on experience and advice to inform their decision-making. This is all available on the PwC website. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's very interactive. You can interact with the data and you can split it down by different industries. But it's fascinating. And while I don't want to say that experience and advice is not a valid source of information, your gut feeling is kind of the intuition, is the ideas. The data is the evidence that these are working, and the two need to come together to work together. But the bottom line is that data-driven businesses are more profitable and productive, and this has been seen in a lot of different research as well, not just that carried out by PwC. The MIT Center for Digital Business interviewed 330 companies and found that they were more productive and more profitable. And again, this was reproduced by Nesta, an innovation charity, which found an 8% increase in profit and productivity for highly data-driven organizations. So I'll leave that section with a little quote. This is from Fred Schulmover, who is the founder and CEO of Insight Squared, who said, you can either take advantage of data and make better decisions, or you can ignore it and get left behind. And I tend to agree with that. So hopefully you're all with me in agreeing that data and analytics is going to be useful, and that it can be used to inform the decisions you're making as a business to drive productivity and profit. So what I'd like to share now is my 6 tips, the 6 common trends that I've found across all of the successful projects that I've worked on, that I feel have been a cause for that success. And when I was reviewing all the projects that maybe haven't been so successful, I kind of realized that it was one of these 6 that was likely missing or hadn't been thought about enough. Be smart. So number 1, Nathan mentioned this in his presentation previously, smart objectives are fantastic. A smart objective is something that is, we'll come on to it in a second, but one of the best smart objectives of all time was from this man, Kennedy, who said, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth." It's a fantastic goal. It's a really good objective, and it's a smart objective. It ties in perfectly with this. It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound. And these are the characteristics that make up a smart goal. Just to give some perspective, maybe in a more common business problem is, my goal is to increase revenue. And you'd be amazed about the number of people who have this as their goal. It's not uncommon. But if you were to apply the SMART methodology to that, you might instead come up with something like, my goal is to increase annual revenue 100% versus the previous year by December 2017. It's quite a mouthful, but the real difference there is that you're given a goal that you can work towards daily. It gives people motivation to work towards that goal, and you can come up with the tactics to help you achieve that goal, rather than sort of trying to move infinitely in one direction towards this increased revenue. So definitely look at bringing smart goals, smart objectives into your processes. So my second point is to find the opportunity. And we often think about the marketing funnel, the digital marketing funnel, and lots of people over the years have described it in varying different ways. And Google have talked about their zero moment of truth. There's all sorts of information you can find out about the marketing funnel. But I'd argue that it hasn't really changed in a century since this was first defined nearly a century ago. And it's essentially its reach, its engagement, and its conversion. You reach an audience, you engage the audience, and then you ultimately get them to convert and invest in whatever product it is that you're offering. Additionally to that, you've got your upsell and your cross-sell opportunities, and you might also consider advocacy, the idea that you might give a customer such a good service that they would come back and work with you continually. But these things haven't changed in a long, long time. The thing that has changed is we now have access to the metrics and the data that can help us measure these things very accurately and very well. So Google Analytics, as an example, you can plug in these metrics, particularly for the top 3, and you can very easily begin to identify where those opportunities are. If you start applying those metrics and putting them into the context of the marketing funnel, you can understand where you're performing well and where you're performing not so well. And it becomes very easy to find those big wins, the small changes that you can have a big impact with. My third tip is about asking the right questions. Asking questions is a very easy thing to do, but not all questions are equal, and some questions are better than others. So, in my mind, what makes a good question is being specific, providing context, and focusing on the questions that will have an impact on your SMART objectives. So there's many things that might be very interesting to know, but as an analyst, I'm always trying to focus on the bits that will make a difference. And by following these simple steps, it's very easy to write questions that just kind of lend themselves to good analysis, good outcomes, and successful opportunities for the business. So for example, a common question might be, should I build a website for mobile devices? It's perfectly good, there's nothing wrong with that question. But if we were to change it to, building a mobile website will cost X pounds, how many months will it be until I see a return on investment? It immediately changes the perspective. You have got something you can answer, and then as a business owner, you can come back with a very quick, informed yes or no decision around whether that will happen. And you're not so much relying on that word of mouth, the opinions of your peers and so on. My fourth tip would be to fail fast or learn fast, depending on how you want to look at it and depending on who you're talking to. Does anybody recognize what this is? No, yeah? Good stuff. This is Six Sigma. This is a process or a methodology that originated from manufacturing. And it was the idea of being able to create reproducible results with a highly efficient process. But the core of Six Sigma is this, DMAIC, D-M-A-I-C, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And this is a repeatable cycle, and it's been borrowed, influences common methodologies such as Agile and Lean Startup methodologies. But the idea here is that we define the question. This is the SMART goal, this is the objective setting that we've already talked about, and finding the right question. We measure, we identify whether we got the right data, so tools like Google Analytics will help you do this. You analyze, you carry out the analysis, and hopefully if you've done those first two steps right, that becomes very, very easy because you know what you're looking for. You improve, so you come up with a recommendation of what you're going to change, what you're going to do differently. And then finally, you control. So in this case, it might be A/B testing changes, or at the very least, launching a change and monitoring the impact that it has over the coming days and weeks and months. So there's a great quote from Edison saying, "I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." So Six Sigma is a fantastic methodology for very, very quickly going through multiple iterations, making small, gradual changes. And this is much more effective than launching into rather significant, large projects that could potentially fail. It's much more effective to find the problems in the early stages of a product and iterate on them. My fifth point would be to measure what matters. It's very easy to get bogged down, particularly with a tool like Google Analytics. There's 97 different reports in there. That's crazy. You can't look at all those reports day to day and have the finger on the pulse of your business like that. So measure what matters. Identify what works for your business. I can't tell you what that is, but if a metric doesn't directly influence your SMART objective, then set it to one side. It may be useful, it may be interesting, but it's not the one you want to be focusing on day to day. So these can be separated out into things like macro conversions and micro conversions. The macro conversions being the ones that really make your business tick. It could be a sale, it could be a contract signed, and the micro conversions will be the things that may lead to that or may indicate that there's some positive movement happening within the business. So things like newsletter sign-ups, add to baskets, subscriptions to newsletters, and so on. So identify these, literally write them out, make sure your tool is capable of measuring them, separate them out, work out which ones fit within your SMART objectives, and then report on the ones that are key to your business. And slightly related to this is be wary of vanity metrics. You may have heard this term vanity metrics before. But it's a term for a metric that is, it's very pleasing to look at. It makes us feel good. It's a nice one to measure, but may not have a big impact on the bottom line. So again, identify the metrics that are completely related to your business objectives. One word of warning would be to break down compound metrics, things like conversion rate or bounce rate, basically anything with a rate in it, into the initial metrics that make it up. So conversion rate is a compound metric of the number of sessions and the number of transactions. It's a ratio. Because if you're not doing that, you get problems like this. You've got the conversion rate here and it's going down, and the client comes screaming and says, "My conversion rate is falling, we need to do something really quickly. This is terrible, everything's going wrong." And you might take a look at it and come back and say, "But your revenue is doing quite well. There's nothing wrong with that." And it's a misconception that, it's an issue with not looking at the metric that is key to the business, the revenue in this case. So to give you a little bit of background on what actually happened there, the client had been building a lot of content, and people had been coming to his site originally once or twice a year to buy the product and to sign up. They then started launching a content hub, and they got people reading and subscribing and coming back 5, 6, 7 times a year and purchasing 3 or 4 times as a result. So they doubled the number of purchases the customers were making. but quadruple the number of times they were visiting the site. So as a result, the conversion rate did plummet, as it should. But the revenue was going through the roof. Unfortunately, this person was actually KPI. Their bonus was based on the conversion rate, so they weren't too happy, but the business was. Which was great. So to wrap that all up, the checklist that I would recommend would be to be smart, set smart objectives, find the opportunities by applying metrics to the digital marketing funnel, understanding how people convert, and applying the information that you have to that funnel. Ask the right questions, be specific in the questions you're asking, and try and think in your mind of what you might do based on the different outcomes you might get from your analysis. Learn fast, use procedures from Six Sigma and Agile methodologies to iterate very quickly and make constant changes rather than launching on big projects that could potentially fail 6 months down the line after a lot of time and money has been spent on them. Measure what matters, identify what's most relevant to your business, and finally beware of the vanity metrics. The last final tip that I'd like to leave you with is that all the analysis in the world is fantastic, but if you don't act on your findings, if you don't actually implement change, if you don't make change based on all the work that you're doing to investigate and understand all these complex decisions you're having to make, then it's no good. You need to act on the findings. It's kind of like winning the lottery and then forgetting to cash it all in. You've got all the information, you need to act on it. So some additional reading, there's some fantastic books that I definitely recommend reading. The Lean Analytics is a particularly good one. And if anyone wants to get in touch, those are my details. Feel free to fire over any questions. I realise I haven't spoken about any specific tools. If anyone's got any specific questions about their situation, I'd be more than happy to have a chat. I'll be around all day as well. And feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.